Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad. Today I'm honoured to speak with Conrad. He is the co-founder of a company called FintruX. And if you're not familiar with that, basically it stands for Smart Financial Business Solutions to Foster SME growth. And if you're not familiar with SME, that stands for Small Medium Enterprise. Now, Conrad, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. You're the co-founder of FintruX. How are you going, mate?
It's going very well. As you see, I'm currently in the Singapore office. I don't know if you can see that bit, but I have the Marina Bay Sands behind me. It's the iconic landmark.
Now, we see startups right now. Many of these startups, Conrad, are essentially crypto fluff. We see them as quite vacuous, quite empty shells that don't necessarily correlate with business. Now, once again, you're technically, with FinTruX, trying to bridge the two worlds of business and the crypto. So let's talk about that in the context of your experience, because you also bring a lot of entrepreneurial skills into this role as co-founder. So let's talk about that, and then let's talk about this analogy and how you could possibly bridge these two.
Yeah, so as discussed, I consider one of my strengths in how I can bring two concepts that previously were, not correlating, whether by design or whether by, just how the cards fell, but how can I bring them together so that there's a sustainable way to meet both sides? And as you said, I do have an entrepreneurial background. I have done many other things in the past, but focusing on blockchain, what really excited me was that there was the potential for global collaboration. There's the potential of a technology that was going to enable so much more distributed economies and the ability for people to interact on a level never seen before and trustfully, right, is the word we like to throw around in the blockchain area. But one thing we see today is that a lot of companies, they don't try to target the traditional sector. And as you very well know, not a large proportion of the whole world uses crypto, right? For most of the businesses out there, crypto is a foreign concept, just known as Bitcoin, right? And it goes up, goes down, and they know it as very volatile and scary to get into.
Right.
But the answer, the true thing is that blockchain has the potential to solve everyday issues that businesses, startups, any growth stage of a business face. However, they're too scared and they don't understand the space for them to get into it. So what I'm trying to do here at FintruX, what the entire FintruX team is trying to do is trying to say, hey, entrepreneurs face issues when trying to scale a business from small to large. How can we use the blockchain effectively to come up with solutions that are friendly to them, are recognizable to them, that helps them crawl before they fly to join the ranks of crypto educated companies out there and participate in the benefits that it can provide.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense. So let's go deep into this discussion. Now, you say that you are really there to lend a hand to these SMEs, as they're known, the small, medium enterprise, and really afford a means to them so that they can, enhance their performance, be more efficient, be more productive. But let's explore the blockchain itself in your context as well, Conrad. Now, for those viewers who are trying to understand more about FinTruX, can we start with the question of blockchain or not? Are you specifically a blockchain, or are you more a service or a product that is designed to facilitate in this new era of business?
Yeah, you can probably call us a hybrid model. We don't have a blockchain of ourselves. We're currently using the Ethereum blockchain, but we are very blockchain agnostic in a sense. Our developers have developed a way to generate smart contracts on any blockchain we need to utilize at any certain time. So right now we're focusing on the Ethereum blockchain to start because it is one of the more tested and robust ones out there, but obviously new ones will come up. But what's important is, we being a hybrid layer, right, we're essentially providing an application layer for businesses to be able to interact with the blockchain without them needing to know that they're using the blockchain, only that there's the benefits of it. There's no need for them to understand what a private key is or a public key. There's no need for them to understand that, hey, this is how I send a token, and oh no, if you miss one digit on your 42 hexadecimal characters, well, there goes your money into ether space. You have no idea where it goes. There's no need for anybody to know the plumbing of how a system works to utilize and have the benefits of the system. I don't know what TCP was when I started using Google,
I didn't either.
all the same, right? Search engines is how I now interact with the web layer. And in the
Right.
same way, we're just trying to provide a way for businesses to see inside the blockchain, to utilize it and benefit from
Got it.
its.
Okay, so let's use an analogy for a car right now. And essentially, the engine is the layer one blockchains, or even layer zero if we want to talk about the whole framework of the car. But essentially, it's the driving capacity, the ability for a business to drive from A to B. You're affording them with a means in which they can do that, and not necessarily have to go and work on the engine, not to have those mechanic skills. For want of a better analogy, to go and have to work on layer one solutions or work on the fundamentals as such. That arguably would really facilitate with integration because you're going to make it quite easy in terms of adoption. So let's talk about how easy you can make it. Now, obviously to do this well, you need to have a really good team. I've had a look and I've seen that Nelson Lin is also one of the key members of your team. I wanted to check with you about the team and what relationship is, because you have the same surname. So I wanted to find out more about that.
Yeah, so as you have mentioned, Nelson does have my surname. He's actually my father. So we can consider this kind of like a father-son collaboration. He has a lot of experience in the space of credit and in building technology solutions for anywhere from the big banks, insurance companies, all the way down to even SME level. So he was actually the first one in 1994 to do online credit adjudication, the first one to put a server in TransUnion offices and have the whole Canada, if not the world, connect with each other and be able to be online credit adjudicated. From then on, he expanded and he built a company called Robocoder Corporation, which for the last 20 years have been servicing mission critical database systems for banks, for insurance companies, financial institutions, for SMEs. And we're very happy to say that we currently serve over 90% of the entire securitization market, which is bulk financing for the uninitiated in Canada. And we manage well over a couple $2 billion of assets.
Okay, so having dad in this company is really what I wanted to get at. So it's not that he's your dad. His skill sets are real, they're independent, and they're valuable to FintruX. And that's why he's essentially started this. I wanted to make sure, because obviously that's going to be raised later on as well, Conrad. So your skill set's being made clear, his skill set's made clear. So thank you for that. And also let's talk about your team more generally. What kind of expertise does your core team bring, like your dad, like Nelson, so that you can really build this out together collectively and efficiently?
Yeah, of course. And thank you, Brad, for bringing it up. Let's focus on 1 second on the dynamics, right, between the management and how the culture we want the company to build. Our team is a team of entrepreneurs. Most, if not all of us, have had the experience of building a business from scratch, and we understand the struggles that come with scaling a startup, with getting from 0 to Fortune 500. Right? How do you do it? And that's really the kind of passion and drive that we all bring into this company that says, hey, we see the struggles. We see what people are missing out there. We see what the traditional market has missed in terms of this entire underserved SME demographic. And we want to be the ones to change it. In terms of Nelson and myself, Nelson is more the back end. He understands the technology very well. He understands processes very well. And he executes, very robust mission critical systems. Mm-hmm. And on my end, I'm very good at the front end. I'm very good at operations, marketing, essentially packaging the product into something usable by the global community. And in this case, the traditional businesses that want to use the crypto products, the blockchain products. And our team comes along and brings a whole amalgamation of, skill sets and experiences, ranging from credit, commercial lending, technology, blockchain, finance. We're just so lucky to have so much talent on board, right. And so much connections in the space for us to really branch out and hit the traditional market as we want to.
Right. Now, it's obviously important for all those who want to know more about the team. Make sure you do inquire. It's available on the website. They have documentation available for information on the team. So make sure you do explore each of the members if you'd like to know more. And I appreciate your time on that. I want to talk to you now a little bit more on finance itself, because that's a key word in the context of FintruX. In fact, one of the ways of explaining FintruX was stated as a one-stop shop resource and a solution provider for business and sustainability. So let's explore that in the context of finance. What essentially is that connection, and what are you fundamentally trying to do since you raised that point of lending?
Yeah, so, one of the biggest issues that every business owner faces is cash flow issues. The time when, whether you're a seasonal business or you're just down in your luck, when you don't have the money to pay for expenditures that you've already incurred, right? And at that point, like any business owner, they go to their trustworthy bank, their local financial institution, and they say, I want a loan. Not much, just $50,000 to $100,000. But the bank will say, well, anything under $1 million is not interesting to me. I don't earn enough from this transaction. And to top it all off, there's not enough credit history for me to evaluate you properly. So I'm just not going to bother with you.
Right.
Then you go to your local lender. Maybe it's a private lender, a loan shark, and you say, well, how much will it cost me? Oh, 35% interest per annum. And that's just unaffordable. How can anyone pay that, especially when you're trying to build a sustainable business and have already put in your life savings into building it up from scratch?
Right.
So we saw that this was the problem that we wanted to fix, right? And you saw a lot of peer-to-peer companies come in, peer-to-peer lending. That's always been a buzzword for the last 5-10 years.
Yes.
But that's not really solved the issue yet, because quite frankly, these peer-to-peer lenders are still acting like a bank. It's more like a rogue bank, if you ask me, because they collect a lot of deposits from interested retail investors, right, who want to earn more interest than just a measly bank 1% per annum,
Mm-hmm.
And then they start investing it wildly. And because it's not their money, they would do very haphazard credit adjudication.
Mm-hmm.
They might not even tell the companies or the individuals that invested in them and said, hey, these are actually, not as creditworthy as you think, but, we earn a percentage of the transaction that comes through. So just please keep investing in more loans and
Right.
we'll keep going. And you see a collapse in China, right? People want to invest and the whole thing collapses. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Right. And you raised a very important point as well, Conrad, in that often these are centralized entities. I myself have actually used that peer-to-peer banking system, and I currently still do, in fact, because I'm always looking for better solutions. But indeed, you are right. There are also inherent risks with management as well, in the way in which the peer-to-peer system's played out, because again, it's centrally managed, despite that they're trying to break traditional cycles. It's not really necessarily changing the game. So let's talk about how you do. You're saying that that's not a solution. So how can it be that you're moving into that next generation, whereby you're creating more automation, you're creating more autonomy, you're enabling better benefits for those who take part in this engagement, this agreement, this financial transaction that FintruX is establishing between business and the consumer? How is it better?
Yeah, so to answer this, we have to go back to the analogy, right? A business wants $50,000 to $100,000, and the question is why. We wanted to drill down directly into that question and says, why do they need this money to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we interviewed a lot of business owners, and we found out that the answer was that because they had incurred a unpaid invoice from one of their mission critical vendors, one of the vendors that produces the good or the service that they repackage and resell in order to make their business a viability in the first place. And they need the money desperately so they can pay back their vendors so that they don't cut them off, mm-hmm. and so that they can continue building the business, which is based on the goods and products that have been provided to them. So we thought, how can we isolate this process? How can we cut the third-party investor out? Because obviously they're not needed.
Mm.
If this client of this vendor can just get the vendor to defer their payments, then all will be solved. And we asked the question, well, why don't vendors let clients do that, right? And they do. They give credit terms, right? But ideally, the credit terms they do give is for companies that they've interacted with for more than 5, 10 years. There's a level of trust that they've built so that if their client says, hey, I can't pay for a month or two, then to say that's fine. You've been paying me for the last 10 years. I trust you, right? How can we capture that trust and put it onto companies that have not been interacting for that long of a time, maybe for just 1 or 2 years? So we decided to capitalize on that. How can we get vendors to trust their clients to make deferred payments on loans, on debts that have already been issued, right? On an invoice that has already been sent out and they couldn't pay it back.
Right.
And one of the ways we do it is and as I mentioned, we have a very strong background in credit adjudication. Actually, one of our directors, our chairman actually, was one of the managing directors of Dun & Bradstreet, the credit bureau in Asia. So we have a lot of experience in credit. And so what we do is we go in and we credit adjudicate the clients, the borrowing company, if you want to call it, right? And say, hey, this is actually your credit worthiness. This is all your financials. And we'll show it for you in a thing we call TruX profile. It's a trust profile, right?
Okay.
And how this differs from your everyday LinkedIn profile or a Facebook business page is that those pages only tell you about the social presence of these companies. It doesn't tell you anything about their financials, doesn't tell you how creditworthy they are, doesn't tell you anything about what you would need to know to make a good financial business decision on whether or not you want to extend their debt, right?
Right.
So what we do is we expose this financial information of this company to their vendor. We say, hey, this guy is creditworthy. The amount you owe him, he's good for it. And on top of that, we enable the borrower in this case to issue their own smart credits, we call them, which are essentially digital tokens that represent their borrowing power. Let's say we adjudicate this borrower and we say, hey, they have $50,000 of credit limit. Then we enable them to use the smart contract and generate up to $50,000 of credits, which are essentially proof of debt owed. And they can send this to their vendor and say, hey, this is proof on the blockchain, right? And it's interest occurring that I owe you money. And this is an official loan agreement now because we've coded the smart contract to be a loan agreement that has the interest rates, that has the terms all set out for them. And hey, you can rest easy knowing that I'm good for the money based on my reputation and based on the blockchain validating that.
Makes a lot of sense, and we will talk about reputation later in the interview. But essentially what you're saying is that you're really making it easier for those who traditionally couldn't get access to credit or to finance because of the way in which you've approached the blockchain, because of the way you've approached the credit scoring. You've even created systems to make this seamless and easy and transparent so that, again, it means that these credit providers can take this process more seriously. There's more rigor involved. And fundamentally, it arguably helps the SME because then they can finally get that finance they so desperately need to utilize for their startup or for whatever it is that they wish to do. So I want to take this further and ask, what's the feedback been? Where's the proof with regard to interactions with real businesses or real lending facilities, real credit providers? Because obviously, Conrad, you'd be talking to all kinds of people at that level. So far, when they hear about and they experience and they see FintruX in the pitch and beyond, what evidence can you tell us about how what's followed up since the first developments of FintruX when you were just a theoretical concept?
Yeah, so I'm very excited to share with you that news. Just last month, actually, in March, we announced the very exciting beta launch of our Singaporean closed beta testing of the TruX platform. And just to quickly note, we call it TruX because it's all about trust, right? The world now is about trust and how much you can trust someone. So we announced the launch of this. We wanted to test up to 50 SMEs, how we can help them achieve up to $50,000 of credit. And I have to say, it's been going very successfully because as we correctly anticipated, there's a lot of need in the space where people just can't get the loans they need to pay off vendors. And their vendors know that they want to keep that client, right? As a producer, you never want to cut off people as much as you can unless it's really, really bad and they can never pay you back.
Right.
But with the solution we're providing, now that they know that the $10,000 that they're currently being owed from the clients is not that big in the big picture. Maybe they're creditworthy for $100,000 and they can rest easy knowing that, hey, I want to defer this payment, but I'm going to earn interest instead, and making me more safe in what's happening here rather than just being taken for a ride, right?
Right. And is that published as well, or is there any way the public can go and find out what this trial was, who is involved, so people can come to understand the real feedback, the real success, the real evidence that this actually is something that can be implemented at the business level?
No, of course, and we're actually planning on releasing a conclusion blog or update blog just next week about how the beta went, what we've learned, what we have grown from, and because everything is always an incremental process, we're always growing, right?
Right.
And we're always learning about how more we can adopt and shift our solutions so that it's helping more and more people. And what we found, and something that warms our heart, is that when the businesses come to us and they're onboarded on our platform, they start seeing other implementations of how this can be useful for them in their everyday processes, which is exactly what we need. That's the market feedback everybody should get before they continue developing a product. Otherwise, they'll go down the wrong path. They'll end up developing something that nobody wants to use. So one very exciting thing that we learned was that on top of being able to refinance existing debts, people also want to use this to buy new things, because essentially what we're giving them is more purchasing power, right? Before they didn't have the cash ready to buy things. Now they can buy things on installment. They can buy things with credits. And this is something that, obviously we know there's been vendor financing in the past, but typically you had to go to a specific vendor if you wanted that financing option, if you wanted to pay by installment. But the solution we're providing is we're letting every business conduct financing with any other business out there, because the company is the one controlling that process. They control the interest rates, they control the payment terms, and they're able to conduct this financing with all sorts of different companies.
Right.
So what we're actually doing in April is we're extending the beta period. We're very excited about how this is going. We're very excited about this new path that our borrowers want to take, so that we are now extending them that availability to explore that on their own, and with us holding their hand and taking through the whole process.
Got it. So obviously now that it is April, let's talk about some of the geographies and where you're really starting this. Now, obviously you're global by design, but you have contacts. You and Nelson are both from Canada. Are you focusing there first, or you mentioned Asia as also a major hub? You're registered in Singapore, lots of contacts there. So talk us through where the main focus is initially.
We want to focus in Singapore to start for many obvious reasons, right? Singapore is definitely a global financial hub. It's where people, when you think innovation, Singapore, Hong Kong, these are the first ones that come to mind in terms of, hey, how can I, where do I want to launch my first innovative fintech startup? Right. And the answer is here because there's a lot of companies, business owners that are ready to adopt new technologies here. On top of that, the government is always happy to help provide a helping hand for any companies that want to do something innovative in the fintech space. It's actually quite remarkable how well received we are when we bring this product here. And on top of that, we have the culture of digital payments very spread around in especially China, Singapore. Everyone has these QR codes in front of their merchants, and you scan it and you pay online digitally. And there's no need for credit cards anymore. Even cash is starting to become a thing of the past. Right. So introducing the smart credits for them is just the inevitable next step for them to say, hey, this is digital money that the banks weren't willing to lend me, but I'm able to generate it myself, and people can trust me on this.
Got it. Now let's talk about the regulatory sandbox in Singapore. Now, my understanding is there's a connection between you and that whole architecture. Quite difficult to get into the sandbox as well. I know of Val, the CEO of PayPal. My apologies, PolicyPal, because obviously they went through the rigor and the arduous process of getting into that sandbox. So talk us through that in relation to you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the regulatory, bodies in Singapore, the MAS, we've been so happy and so blessed to be able to communicate with them and establish understanding about, what we're trying to achieve in this space and how we're trying to grow from there. And, the beauty of it is that they're actually, responding back and giving us better solutions in terms of how we can leverage their support, especially in the fintech space. We did initially look at the regulatory sandbox to start. However, there was a lot of red tape and regulatory standstills that would involve their, when you start going into it, we wanted there to be a split branch. We wanted to say, hey, this was the regulatory friendly model, the core TruX business that we want to build, and it's expandable globally everywhere. And we want to have this separate side project that was going to explore additional features that might be a bit more gray area and see how we can do that in the sandbox.
Right.
But what the MAS actually told us was that, hey, there's a grant for you guys. There's a POC scheme that we have set up that says, hey, for every dollar you spend on this innovative fintech environments, we can give you up to 70% of that back, which is amazing for us, right? They're essentially trying to fund and support our growth. And on top of that, they'll relax the regulatory requirements for us to build that out, because they understand that we need to rigorously design and conduct tests. And without that, we're not able to, seek the license we're trying to get in the future. Right. So with that, we actually have talked with the MAS, and we're very excited to be embarking on this journey with them to see how our product can be involved in something they call in their POC experiment to be called the technical equivalence trial. And that's going to be the way where we can really see how the technical parameters of the extended features we want to set that may be regulatory touching can actually be pushed out with their support, with their monetary support, with their overarching support as well.
Right. Now, you mentioned also that you implied that you're trying to apply for a license currently and you're going through the process. Can you talk us through what that involves and where you are positioned in terms of getting that license? Because that's obviously going to set you in good stead for the future of your business development.
Yeah, for sure. And, I alluded to this a bit before too, but I want to again emphasize the idea of having a regulatory friendly product. What do all regulators want to do? Well, they want to ensure that the product that any company is pushing out is safe for its constituents. It's safe for them to participate in, and it doesn't cause any losses for the global economy. What we're proposing today is something that would stimulate the economy, stimulate SME growth so that there's more jobs for everyone, there's more global GDP. And at the essence of it, we're trying to help an underserved market that nobody's been able to tackle financially to date. So in that sense, our regulatory friendly model is able to expand globally and actually be the main driver of our success. What we want to do in terms of getting the license is to see how we can bridge the traditional financial institutions to have a way to participate in our current models, and also for retail investors to come in as well. So for the uninitiated, I want to kind of talk about the steps to regulation, right?
Okay.
And, starting from the licensing part. The licensing part really comes about when you have a very robust system. You've already gotten all the users on board. You've already tested to an extent how well received your product is. And that's the regulatory touching products, right? The parts that may be gray area. And essentially proven that there's a market and there's a market demand for this before they give you a license. So you see a lot of lending companies in the space here in Singapore, they all went live before they got a license just to get that initial bulk of users, 5,000 users, 10,000 users, to prove to the MAS that, hey, there's an opportunity cost, but you're not going to lose anything by giving me the license because I already have users ready.
Got it. Okay.
And then to the step before that, right, the sandbox. And that's when people are trying to, they have a working prototype, they want to test out all the rigorous factors, but it's at a cost because the government is already expecting you to be, very regulatory focused. You have to do very strict KYC. You have to make sure that everything is audited up to date, preferably by a Big Four firm. And there's still a lot of barriers for you to achieve that growth, which is why we're very excited that when the MAS suggested that, hey, there's this POC
Mm.
application that we go through instead, and they're actually going to pay us for it, well, why the hell not, right? That's
Right,
very exciting
exactly.
for us. And that's actually the very first step that they recommend we take,
Mm.
because this is going to be a continuously evolving system that we want to test. And to give you more background on it, I mentioned that we have all these smart credits floating around between, the borrower and the lender, or let's say the recipient of the credits, right? Whether it be a vendor or not.
Mhm.
We also want to have a way for retail investors and financial institutions to be able to invest onto those credits and eventually and essentially put a fiat backing onto that, so that there is more flow of money flowing around that's available for these SMEs to grow. We're starting off by creating a trusted ecosystem where they can all trust each other and transact using credits only. But
Mhm.
I see the future as being able to encourage the global market to participate and fund these companies to do more and do better with what they have.
Right. And obviously, as you alluded to, the inclusion of fiat is going to be imperative for mass adoption. It's just no way around that initially, because these businesses that exist now, that's how they operate. That's the crux of their system. So you being fiat supportive is going to be imperative for your own growth, I would imagine, for FintruX.
That's very correct, yes.
Right. Okay, well, let's talk about a little bit more about some of these key terms you represent. I want to move into fundamentals for a moment. Now, some of them are things like global trust, secure smart credit, payment controls, and equal access. So talk us through the tech itself, just in a nutshell though, because of time. What are the fundamental aspects of the technology that you provide that enable these kind of key terms that we mentioned? Once again, the global trust, secure smart credit, payment control, and equal access. Because if the technology that is afforded and provided by FintruX can do it, we need to know about it, and we need to know how you do it.
Perfect. And I want to first start by saying, the technology piece is very important to us. As I mentioned, we've been developing mission critical systems for so long. We know what it takes to build something robust and something usable. And the answer commonly is that you use a variety of technologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't just use C#, you use SQL Server. You don't just use SQL Server, but you use JavaScript on top. There's many layers that are involved when trying to build a successful system. And it's the same for us too. Yes, we're building a smart contract to essentially give to every SME on our platform and say, hey, this is your smart contract. This represents the amounts that you can borrow up to, right? This is your borrowing power. And you can generate credits only to the limit of that. And whenever you send one out, know that this is a loan agreement. Every time you send it out, you don't pay it back. You, the owner of the company, are personally liable for this. And if you
Right.
don't pay this back, this is a loan, right? So that's what the smart contract can do for us. We've essentially automated the loan contract and automated the process in which it takes to get a loan. And instead of getting it from some, third-party stranger, you're actually getting it from the businesses and the vendors that already know you and trust you and want to work with you to develop something bigger.
Got it.
So
Now, just to
that's,
interrupt you, I wanted to ask you, can we check the tech? And now, is there any open source protocol or is there any means? Because obviously you would be aware with blockchains, that's how they're designed, so that you can go and access them publicly. How open is FintruX, or is this a proprietary endeavor and much of it's privatized?
yeah, so this has always been, a point for consideration for a lot of us. And how do you remain competitive in a space where once you open source, everyone's trying to use what you've already built and build something better, right?
Mm.
And that's the whole point of the collaborative blockchain space, which I do love so much because it ensures that, the last one standing is actually the one that has built the best product out there.
Right.
However, for us, we had to see, we had to balance it, right? We had to balance it between, what's patent pending and, what is available for open sourcing and what can we showcase really. And, I was at Money 2020 just last month, and I heard this amazing talk by someone from the WeBank Association in China. And they're saying that, collaboration enables more innovative properties to come about. It gives everyone a chance to add on what they know and help you build something even greater. And that's something I want to really focus on, is that we are planning to open source all the collaborative efforts of our the extended features of our products. Anything that needs to connect with our products and interact with it, and provide value to the ecosystem, we will 100% open source, and we want everybody to work together with us on that. And I have something very exciting news about that coming up in the later few weeks as well, in the form of a blog post involving our and open sourcing.
Right. So you're very much a proponent of open sourcing some of the fundamentals or some of the key features. But let's bring it back though to the core asset, and that is your interface, your core technology. Have you built in patents, and are you currently closed source in that respect, so you can obviously build this out beyond the beta so that you can be competitive in this marketplace as you hybridize the system, bring current businesses to the blockchain?
Yeah, so I see it in stages, right? At the moment, what I'm convincing the team on is that we have a lot of insights that have been brought about in our development of these hybrid technologies that would be beneficial for the greater community to know about it. Those things must go out. Those things must be shared. I definitely agree that if there's something that we have come up with that has increased the functionality and increased the adoptability of blockchain, it should be shared with the open global market.
Right.
But in terms of the proprietary, the secret sauce of what makes everything work.
Yes, that's what I'm alluding to.
That's definitely going to be in stages. Once we see that we've passed a milestone of competitive advantageness, that nobody can catch up to us even if they have the source code, that's when we release the next step. And we keep releasing as we go so that people can continue to build on what we have, but not at a level that, hey, we're actually just giving away everything we have and now everyone can do it without. Because as I mentioned, it's kind of like a salami, right? Salami sandwich. There's many, many facets to what we do. And it's not just the technology that makes it great. I mentioned credit adjudication in the piece. I mentioned that we build front-end systems, back-end systems, and everything comes together so that it's not necessarily just a smart contract or just a certain piece that makes us work. It's the whole package.
Right. Well, let's talk. I just want to jump in there. You mentioned a package. Let's talk about the interface. So let's assume, for example, I'm arriving to the FintruX store as an enterprise party that's interested in trying to integrate my business utilizing your technology and your services and products. What can you show me today? What kind of interface do you offer? Are there any demos available? Can people see this online?
Yeah, so right now we actually have a demo around my phones that we currently use to onboard our closed beta participants. They actually all have the application on the phone themselves. They can go in, they can do whatever they need. They can access their TruX profile. They can send and receive tokens. And that's what we're doing for now. We're keeping it closed source so that the participants in the beta can use it. We can use it ourselves to onboard new people. But ultimately, we want it so that later on in the future, we're going to be releasing something for everybody to be able to sign themselves on and see how the platform works as well. And that's going to be our next stage of testing.
And how far away are we, Conrad, from that kind of development where people can interact, engage, experience FintruX?
We want that to be in May. We're very excited. We want that to be in May. But the main thing is that we're still focusing on a July launch. July is our global launch and I'm probably saying too much already, but we actually have 3 products planned for the global launch. And it's going to be very, very exciting because we believe that all comes to conjunction. There's many different types of customers that we have, people that want an easy onboarding, people that are desperate for credit and don't mind giving more information, people that just want to network with other businesses in the space using a trusted network. So we have a lot of ideas on how to best provide for all these different types of customers. And in that, we derived that we need actually 3 different products to push out in July. And we're very excited for that. So one of the products we're going to be pushing out is going to be in May to showcase the community how you can actually get involved today and even while pre-launch stage.
Got it. So May's only a month away. That's the reality. So you're moving quite quickly now. You've been on the market for some time in terms of the token being available and operational. But really, the test will be May, June. as you really showcase these developments and as you move into this full-blown operational ecosystem that you've been working on building for some time now? How long has it been where you've been in this phase of accessible token on the market, known to the public? How long has it happened? How long has that been happening for?
Yeah, we've finished our fundraise around February of last year. So it's been around a year and a little bit. And, it's been a very long journey. We've had a lot of lessons. We spent a lot of time, really making sure that the legal part of it is correct, right? We initially started by saying, hey, how can we automate and make more efficient the whole lending process, but still deal with fiat, right? And we really tried really hard to deal with fiat and still remain regulatory friendly. Mm-hmm. And the answer at the end of the day was that, hey, we did release a few loans, by the way. Last year, we did a loan of $300,000 unsecured, and we did a loan of $500,000 with collateral backed in terms of convertible equity. Okay. So we tried those processes out, and we try to see, hey, how can we make this better? How can we continuously innovate? How can we do more, right? While hitting the milestones bit by bit. Mm-hmm. And eventually came up with TruX being the winner of essentially our brainstorming of how can we truly deliver value to the traditional companies out there? How can we truly provide something that people will use and continue using, for their everyday usages?
Right, and it makes a lot of sense. But let's pull it back right at the beginning, because you alluded to the raise. So I want to talk about that so people are aware. Now, you did do an ICO, that famous 3 letters. How much did you raise? Can we talk about the terms as well in terms of lockup? I want to understand this because obviously this is important to know for how far you've come, what kind of runway you had, and where you're at now in comparison to that ICO.
Yeah, so we raised $25 million in ETH at the time, which was around 22,000 ETH. Mm-hmm. And, the lockup was that the founders and the core team would be holding our tokens until 1 year anniversary, which was actually just 1 month ago. Okay. So we have received our tokens. Our core team is still very much ingrained in trying to build a successful ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Myself and Nelson, we have publicly stated that we will not sell until we actually develop something of value, until we go live, until we see that there's adoption of our products, right? We don't want
and that's a huge amount of trust, for the audience. So I appreciate your transparency because quite simply, we're hearing you evolve into this operational ecosystem and you have access to these tokens. Now, let's get frank about this. How can we go beyond just a conversation of trust? I mean, will there be any degree of transparency? How can we make sure that your word is as strong as oak when it comes to making sure that people can understand that this is a long-term game for you?
Yeah, well, it all comes down to trust, as you mentioned. Trust is so important in any aspect of your life, and we want to ensure that the community knows we're just as committed as they are. So in terms of the token amounts that were released to the core team, it's all public. It's all on the Ethereum blockchain. You can see exactly the time that it went out, and you can see who's going to sell and who doesn't sell, right? Okay. And in that sense, we are definitely committed. And on top of that, I want to bring about one point too, is that, the reason why we did so much preparation, and, initially the roadmap did say that we needed this lead time to develop a sustainable product, is because we're very good at that. We're very good at developing a robust product that withstands the test of time. Our solution that we delivered 20 years ago is still running today for the banks, large banks in Canada, and they are still running on that software that we've continuously rejuvenated and improved for them. And to top off those matters, in the 2008 recession, none of our clients lost any money because we understand what it takes to build a system that is not just good when the market is booming, but it's also good when the market is bear.
Right, and we've seen the bear emerge for several months now in this hibernation phase. But I do want to go back to that question, though. I'm going to press you on this a little bit. So if it runs true, and obviously I'm hearing that narrative and hearing that strength of argument from you, that you're there for the long term for FintruX. The question has to be asked, though, why did you need to have the release of the tokens for the team relatively early on. You mentioned a year. Now, that's not uncommon. I will make that clear. That's quite common among all blockchains to have relative, the year, 2 year, 3 year. But if there's no intention for any team member to utilize any tokens at all, why unlock them? Why have them in that situation where they could technically choose to move some of their tokens?
The answer for that is very simple. It was contractually agreed, and unfortunately, that's how these contracts are, and the release was inevitable. But for us, we want to just make clear that we believe in the product very strongly, and myself and Nelson, have definitely publicly said that this is the amount we're holding. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it's been distributed, whether or not it's still in the main wallet, it's for us to decide whether or not we're selling. And honestly, anybody can track that anytime they want.
And I appreciate it. And I do apologize if I press too hard, but it's obviously something that's going to come up in Telegram, in all kinds of media that FintruX, and probably it's been asked before. But with regard to future value, this is where I want to go now. Now, obviously, it's in your interest to build the whole value of your ecosystem. That includes your token. To do that well, and to do it successfully with proper token velocity, proper token economics, you need really clear guidelines, really clear explanations. Do you have it? Are you releasing that information to the public so that we can understand what your true utility plan is?
Yes, definitely. And we have actually been drafting a tokenomic paper for the last while, and really making sure that it's up to date with all the legal standards of utility tokens to date, right, in Singapore, working with our legal team, working with the MES to make sure that, hey, we are pushing out something that can be confirmed to stand the test of time, unlike some of the other tokens out there that when they launched their ICO, they said that it's going to do amazing things, all sorts of things, a million things. However, when the regulators came knocking, they say, oh, wait, we can't do anything. And now, what is the true utility there? So we actually have a tokenomic paper planned to release this month. And we're very excited for that because it would set clearly how our FTX token is going to play in the grand scheme of TruX, how TruX is going to evolve to really adopt this token as the main driving force of how everything in our ecosystem is accomplished and succeeds, and how specifically traditional business users can use this token.
Right, and will you clearly explain also the correlation between the token itself and the growth of FintruX? Because that's going to be probably one of the most important things of every piece of information you ever release. Because if people are going to support your utility, even in the speculative frame, they're going to need to know the architecture and means in which this true utility, an authentic one, can actually grow anomalously. It's a paradox in itself with the growth of your ecosystem. So obviously it's not a security, I'll make that clear. But from a proper economic model, that utility token should correlate with the business growth of FintruX.
That's very correct, Brad, and thank you for bringing this up. So ideally, what we want to introduce, because this is something we see in a lot of the businesses we're onboarding today, right, is that this is their first taste of blockchain. This is their first taste of cryptocurrency. So it's up to us to make a good impression on them. Mm-hmm. It's up to us to bring about that change that says, hey, our token, the FTX token, is the token you need to build a better business. It's a token that every SME needs to have to build a better business, because this is going to be there's a sustainable ecosystem and a dynamic ecosystem that enables them to utilize it to the best and full potential.
Right.
Now, because I did mention that we are onboarding a lot of traditional users, well, then the clear answer is, well, they don't have crypto to start. You can't expect them to go to the exchange, buy tokens off the exchange, or first of all, send money to the exchange, wait a while, then buy Ether, then
They'll never do it. They'll never do it. So let's not waste time with that, because we know they won't do that. So what have you guys designed as a solution?
Yeah, so in the first step, then the onboarding process, must be fiat. That's just how it is, right? But we have implemented a behind the scenes, buyback of the token as it is coming in, because we want the token to be the transactional layer between all the different transactions happening within our platform.
Right.
So at the first stage. Even people coming onto their platform and paying the subscription fee is already captured in FTX. But that's not where the utility ends, right? We foresee a lot of different ways of how the utility of the token can be beneficial for both the users of the platform, right? But also for interested third parties who want to leverage the data on the platform. And let me give you an example. So one of the very key, inspirations of this is that we want to build an ecosystem where businesses can transact using credit, and using that credit, we can actually increase their credit worthiness so that they can access traditional financing options in the future,
Right.
meaning a bank loan. So with that, we're actually capturing a lot of data that's been underutilized, right? And a lot of banks are very willing to pay for this data.
Mm-hmm.
We envision that with this information, we only want people to be able to use FTX to pay for this. There should be no fiat onboarding, because we wanted to understand that the power of SMEs comes with the power of FTX. That's what they need to pay in order to get the information out. But on top of that, what businesses need to use the tokens for is we're able to provide them more reputation, more transparency on how they are in their current stage of life. If they are holding and staking a lot of FTX tokens, then obviously they're not going to be running off with the credits, running off the money, the goods and services that their vendors provided them, because they have an inherent stake in the system. They want to continuously build the system to be something more.
Right. So in that, just to recap, so there's a few different aspects of utility. So we're talking about transactional value in terms of supporting that. We're talking about staking. We're also talking about incentivization. These are common buzzwords we hear with really good quality economic modeling. So are you saying that you've really approached this from all different angles to make sure that this is a genuine utility? Because it's the most important thing, Conrad, that you do have this utility token that really can stay the test of the crypto time, so that we can see that people, particularly in the enterprise sector, are going to use this as a real deal means of interacting in a business frame, so that we have fiat to utility conversions done in the back end through you, but for real, meaningful use cases.
Correct. And I think the beauty of it is that the traditional businesses are onboarded without knowing that there's, that fiat to FTX to token conversion in the back end.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're actually going to be doing is slowly introducing new concepts of blockchain to them. Oh, they're sending smart contracts. Oh, I created an account. I actually have a wallet. I can actually spend it. Oh, what's this FTX token doing here? Oh, if I can stake it, I can do more things. I can get membership levels. I can get more benefits. I can get, it becomes a whole ecosystem where they're so used to seeing the FTX that they're able to identify it as, well, this is just what I need to access the platform with. And in the future, they can, because this is their way of utilizing, real value and getting back, the questions are, how do I earn FTX? And then how do I spend it, right? That's the questions everyone want to ask.
Right.
And want to make sure that that's proponents throughout the ecosystem.
And I appreciate your answer in that. And we pressed a little bit on the discussion of utility, but again, that's the imperative. Now let's talk about proof of evidence rather than proof of utility. What evidence can you tell us with regard to some of the partners perhaps, or any of the feedback in the enterprise sector with regard to actually experiencing this utility firsthand, or even at the beta level? Or is there any discussions currently, right now, as the co-founder, for any enterprises to engage in the future, whereby we can have a better understanding of, okay, how can this be used and proven in context? Because we know now from you that it's a utility design. How can we go that step further and see more of the proof?
Yeah, so we are working with a lot of different associations and a lot of big consortiums of companies, because that's the way we see we can drive the most value, from a top-down approach from the, association level, because we see that we're providing all their group members a benefit. And with that, we can provide a very quick market adoption, right? Once you say, hey, the association I'm part of says this is a brand new product, this is a great product, I'm going to use it. And on top of that, we're trying to organize, publicity events where we can really walk the talk, right? And say, hey, these are the guys that's been working with us. These are the guys that have been successful with us. And this is how they use our platform in their everyday life and are starting to understand the utility of everything revolving around it.
Right.
And I want to say that it comes in steps for sure. Right now, what we're testing is the concept, the technology. We're making sure that people are willing to transact in a way they've never transacted before and get credit in a way which they've never gotten it before. From there, that's where we start introducing new concepts of the idea of the FTX token, the idea of how I can use this to get more benefits out of the platform, and just more and more use cases that are yet to be discovered, to be honest, because there's just so many ways that our token and our ecosystem can evolve in a way that benefits these businesses everywhere.
Right. So essentially, you're still in that continuum of evolving until you have that full-blown or robust application of the token in the context of business. Now, obviously, that's moving quite quickly for you, as you mentioned, with May, June, with big things happening. But once again, to harp back, is when you are presenting, when you are discussing this and trying to allude to some sort of value, what kind of size or magnitude of businesses are we talking? Who is the likely initial entrance into the FintruX ecosystem? Are they big businesses within the SME context? Is it likely that they're going to afford you significant revenue? Let's talk about that for a moment and how it benefits both of you reciprocally.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting. I mentioned there's the concept of many different types of customers that come on board, right?
Right.
And we see that very obviously in terms of certain demographics. So, for example, the companies that come to us and say, "Hey, I really need your help because I can't get a loan from anywhere, and I need to pay off my vendor." Well, those companies are generally between $1 million to $1.5 million revenue. They're looking for a loan between $10,000 to $100,000, right? That's the kind of market segment we're seeing that comes for us for existing debts. Mm-hmm. But we also see the other market segment, which I mentioned I'm very excited about, is a group of companies that say, I want to buy more goods on credit.
Right.
I want to get more purchasing power. I want to be able to say, hey, I want to buy this today and not have to pay upfront cash for it. And that's the bigger market segment where these guys have maybe $5 million revenue, $10 million revenue, and they all work together in the supply chain. Mm-hmm. So that they understand each other and they previously had a trust between each other. Maybe they extended $10,000 of credit every month, wait for them to sell their product and then sell it back to them, give them back the unpaid invoice, right?
Right.
But, we're seeing that they are excited to get credit adjudicated and get recognized for the credit worthiness they actually have, mm-hmm. and be able to command more power in dealing with their vendors and saying, hey, give me a bigger batch, give me more costs, more savings per unit. I can buy more. This is my credit to prove it. And I can pay you back more as well. So that's something we're seeing as well. And those companies are, as I mentioned, $5 to $10 million revenue, much bigger companies, and they can come on in bulk tranches.
Well, let's talk about revenue. You mentioned it now. What about for FintruX? Where do we stand there with regard to the future or potential of revenue generation for your company? Because obviously that's one of the big foci as well, is that you want to be viable long term. And to do that, you need money. There's only so much that your runway is going to take you through until you need those funds to continue. So what's the plan there? What's the status right now in terms of revenue that you're making, if indeed you are, or is it more in the future that you'll be able to prove that?
Well, actually, Brad, our 2 loans that we did last year are still paying us back. So we're actually revenue generating. We're very happy to say that. We've, I think around in interest, we've gotten $100,000. That's pretty good for, pre-launch.
Pre-launch, we like to hear revenue pre-launch. That gives us some confidence.
Of course. And, from there, it's only going to go up. We see a lot of potential in in grabbing a market share quickly, however. So we're trying to play the balance between, having a sustainable business that pays for itself, which we have designed, and also being able to have the extra wealth to invest into the company, to then do more R&D, to then do more greater marketing, to capture more users, so that the more people that are on our platform, the better it is for everybody involved in the whole ecosystem.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. So essentially, you're in a good position now for future revenue generation. But I want to also be controversial for a moment and talk to you about the current token price. I've had a look and explored this a little. obviously there was a situation at some point in time where we see that inevitable dump, you know, whether it be a VC dump or from whomever, we see it in almost every blockchain. Now, right now, you've gone through the very difficult bear market where you've seen the price decline to some extent. Talk us through, though, once again, how, if in fact it's possible, that the value of your voucher, the value of your token as the utility core of your whole ecosystem can technically, by design, develop as you move forward. You know, because right now we're at that point where we're going to see a lot of action happening for FintruX in the enterprise sector. And we're just at that point now where we're starting to see, you know, you move into your launch. So is it fair to also say that we're likely to see that reflected in this vouchers, in this, you know, value system that you have, which is the utility at the core?
Yeah, and Brad, I'd like to answer your question, you know, by going to the start, right? You mentioned the past, and I'd love to address that. So one thing that we did when we did our fundraising is we didn't want to rely on VC money. We were really passionate on the whole idea of the blockchain collaborative community and the network effects that, you know, token holders can really bring. Okay. So we strive to ensure that a very large proportion of our crowd sale, almost 80 to 90% of our crowd sale, was reserved for the public. So it was a public crowd sale. So, but the unfortunate thing that happened was the second that we finished the crowd sale in February, that's when the initial bear market first started. And because a lot of the holders were just, you know, retail, you know, everyday people, they fled to the more robust coins that were already out there.
I see. So mass public dump happened.
Something like that, yeah. And because we didn't have our products, our roadmap hadn't scheduled our product to be released yet at that time either, right? We had scheduled it for this year. So that's why it became, you know, a wait and see kind of environment. But what we're very proud to say is that now that we've actually started going into, you know, as I mentioned, March, April, May, June, July, this on-ramp of success after hitting every milestone, we're seeing that our core supporters are still here backing us up and trying to make everyone aware that, hey, these guys have been underground, have been in development. They've been, you know, releasing information as it is, but now there's lots of progress. You know, they're hitting everything they need to hit, and they're going to launch soon. We're already seeing that uptick in growth and volume.
And it's good to hear that you stayed that there and you worked on this as a team. You didn't just go out and waste some of the raise on parties and extravagance. And we have seen that with some blockchains quite seriously. It's quite a joke, actually. You're obviously not like that. You've been quiet as a team, you've been productive, and now you're emerging from the crypto cave in that hibernation as we move hopefully into this more bullish market. With a stronger voice as you embark on this launch and beyond. Now, partners. I want to talk about, obviously, if you want to know more about the pre-existent partners that helped FintruX emerge, you can see them. There's a whole list. There's Microsoft, there's Trust Wallet, Traceto, Synopsis Solutions, and many more. But I want to talk to you about more the future. You as a co-founder would know, what are some of the wheeling and dealing that you're doing? Who are you talking to? I want to get inside your head there to find out more about what the potential collaborations are, whether they be blockchain-centric or whether they be traditional enterprise agreements. What is coming? Give us some hints.
Yeah, Brad, I think hints are all I can give you on this front because everything's still very touchy-feely. You got to be careful of all that. But, you know, I mentioned one of them before, definitely associations. You know, the Asian, in the Asian market, you know, when you want to build a business, you always want to join an association. Association is almost one of the first things you join because that's where you know you can get some of the resources you need to sustain yourself and to start networking with like-minded individuals and start building a sustainable product. So we see association and association partners as so important to our growth because once we have established success with one association, they'll all come running because the idea is that we're not just here to help one sector. We're not here just to help one group of people, here to help everybody. Right. Associations are a very good way to do that.
Well, give us some clues because that's a very, very broad term. What kind of associations? What's the magnitude? What's the role? Give us some hints.
Yeah, so I can say, that retail and F&B have been very, very interesting people to work with. There's been a lot of adoption in that sense. I'm talking about groups of, 100 to even 1,000 members.
Right.
So there's a
And are we talking also about large alliances, which in the sense of Fortune 500, for example? Are we talking about big enterprise in this context of SME? Or, yeah, I'm trying to gauge the magnitude, the kinds of people in these associations as well.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, there is a scope, there's a range, right, of different companies we're targeting. We really want to focus on the SME sector to start. We know the enterprise level is very attractive. We know there's a lot of money to be made there, but we want to focus on the social good we're doing now because we're targeting companies that really had no one else to help them. Enterprises have lots of tools, lots of VCs.
They do.
There are a lot of people that are willing to help them, right? But it's this middle market segment that's so underserved that we really want to focus on there first.
Right. And how big is this market of SME as well, Conrad? I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to understand the economics of this, how big is this SME potential?
The thing is, Brad, nobody knows because nobody's tried. Nobody has ever successfully captured the SME market and stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
Most companies that go SME, then once they get some VC funding, then they go up. They say, I only want to serve enterprise because that's where the bulk of the money is. But
Right.
what they realize is, the time and effort that they spend, just to, also preface, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of companies don't serve SMEs is there's a lot of time and resources needed to service them to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we are doing is we're automating that process. We're making it simple. We're making it easy. We're making it scalable for us to target this whole segment. And we're seeing in the trillions of dollars a whole market opportunity that has just been underserved and overlooked. And we're able to really tap into that and service them as best as we know how. And it's what they want.
Got it. So clearly there's a whole market opportunity here. If they're underserviced, overlooked, you want to reverse both those points and make them known in the space and supported. So is there a pipeline of interest from the SME? Can we be assured of that coming from you, that once you launch, once you emerge, that there's going to be real business had and that there's already a significant pipeline of interest lined up at the FintruX door?
Yeah, I can definitely say that there's a lot of interest, globally. Right now, we're just launching in Singapore, and we've had an influx of emails that say, "Hey, how can I get started? I'm in Estonia, I'm in Netherlands. We get so many different emails that we want to say we can help you now, but roadmap just isn't there yet. We want to wait until our global launch in July to be able to service you. But we know that there's a huge wait list of people that want this service, they want it now, and it's something that they've been looking forward to their whole life, right? So it's something that we are trying to say, hey, yes, we can service you and we want to service you, and please wait for us.
Absolutely. Well, to do this, now you need the support of the crypto community because obviously you're an emerging, whilst you've been on the market for some time, you've been, in this very stealth phase, doing this thing, your thing. Right now, we're going to need the support of the community to really uplift and understand your value. So what are you doing in that front to do the marketing to support your go-to-launch strategy?
Yeah, so as you say, Brad, it's important for all aspects of community to help out in our launch. We started as a grassroots movement. We want to stay a grassroots movement. It's very important for us that the community is just as ingrained with us and pushing out the same, singing the same song, right, as us to really get all the market potential that we can get. So we're launching a community ambassador program. It's very exciting for us. We're trying to leverage the power of the community that says, hey, you should always trust word of mouth more than you trust someone saying something. And we want people to understand the benefits for themselves so that when they see that there's benefits in there and they see value in referring their friends, they see value in referring their loved ones, and there's no loss to be had. That's the true beauty of a distributed ecosystem, a distributed network where the network effects will just keep spreading and spreading. And the crux of this is that it doesn't have to just limit to the cryptocurrency space.
Right.
What we're doing is spreadable across the traditional space like wildfire. And all of that links back to the cryptocurrency as well, because they're all going to be transacting on FTX.
Got it. Now let's talk about the specifics though. What kind of strategies are you employing? Are you going to engage with specific crypto firms? You know, obviously they exist whereby you do some sort of marketing there. Are you going to engage in PR with more traditional sectors in the mainstream? What's your exact strategy, or is it going to be more organic from people like me who want to know more about FintruX? And just to add on as well as a caveat, I did invest in FintruX very recently, but that's not the reason why. Oh, well, it's okay. It was my research and my choice, but this was a free interview. But is it people who want to, like myself, bring the education to the fore? Or have you got a strategy in place whereby you're trying to do a formal initiative where you really showcase, from a marketing standpoint, what FintruX is all about?
We think education is at the core of everything. And it's why I look up to people like you, Brad, you know, people that are focused on educating the greater community and ensuring that everyone knows exactly what they're getting into and what is just out there in the open space. For us, education is a big piece. We believe in inbound marketing. Inbound marketing is so important. You can never overlook it because once you've established that you understand what you're talking about, once you've established that you can teach them more about what they want to learn about, and you can show them something like how to build a better business, how to manage cash flows, how to, you know, leverage your reputation. Those are all things that we can teach and they can bring home and identify with and eventually adopt and spread it the word. On top of that, we understand the power of traditional media. So we actually do have a lot of traditional media planned. I'm not going to say too much about this, but I actually have a live radio interview planned with one of the prominent SME radio broadcasting stations in Singapore. So that's very exciting. That's going to happen soon. When we do our launch in July, we're going to be doing it at Rise, the Hong Kong, big giant festival. 10,000 people are going to be there. We're very excited about that because all these things provide us a very good platform for us to spread the word far and wide and also remain the integrity of the organic growth that we see here today on top of the community ambassadors that we eventually will deploy across all areas of the world.
Got it. Well, Conrad Lin, it's been an absolute privilege talking to you, mate. Not because I invested, it's got nothing to do with that. It's because you've explained, from your perspective at least, you are the real deal when it comes to the SME integration into blockchain, making sure that there's a means in which those small businesses are heard and they're given an opportunity to essentially have a better credit and lending platform. You're changing the game with finance. You're letting us know also that you have a real and true token economic model paper coming, and that will all be outlined. That is going to be very interesting read indeed. I'm interested also that you have technology base, your team have built out something, but also you have the entrepreneurial prowess with your team to lead this, and that is going to be imperative to build out the business ecosystem in the real world. So thank you very much for your time, Conrad. And I hope we can discuss a little bit more as you move towards your launch so we can keep following along in your progress. Is there anything you'd like to add as a final statement?
No, well, thank you so much for the kind words, Brad. And, anything to add would just be, TruX is just the beginning. As I mentioned, there's so much more we have planned, so much more integrations, how we can better serve the SME, demographic as a whole. And we see so much more integration coming in stages where we're just so excited to release it for everybody. If you are interested in following us, please come to our website, www.fintrux.com. Also follow us on our social medias, just at FintruX for most of them. And we are also going to be launching our community ambassador initiative. We've been hinting about it on social medias for the last little bit, but we'll actually have a true set out plan for anybody who wants to get involved and get started coming out very soon as well. So really everything's coming up in place. We're all very excited. Everyone on the team is elated for what we're about to push out, and we hope you are too.
Well, mate, thanks for your time once again. If you'd like to know more, there's links below. I'll make sure they're there. And as Conrad said, there's also an ambassador program coming up. So thank you once again for your time, Conrad. And we'll certainly talk soon if you'll have me back on, come back on the channel so we can explore more of what FintruX is trying to do today and tomorrow in business and beyond.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me.
You're welcome, mate.